Welcome to Allies or Enemies. This time we are looking at Marvel United X-Men, designed by Andrea Chiarvesio, Eric M. Lang, and Francesco Rugerfred Sedda. This newest incarnation of CMON's Marvel United line puts players into the blue and gold boots of the uncanniest of mutant superheroes as they take on menacing foes, battle henchmen, play cards, and hopefully stop villainous plots. It's primarily a cooperative game, with some new alternate competitive modes. It plays for 1 to 4 players, or 5 if someone is the villain, and though the box says 40, we found it takes closer to 20 to 30-ish minutes. But before we get too far into what's in the box, or boxes, let's look at how it works.
Marvel United X-Men is at its heart a fairly simple card game with some adorable minis thrown in. The play area is made up of 6 locations that start with villain-specific threat cards in a mix of both civilians and thugs. The game starts with a villain playing a card to move and then doing something devious like adding thugs or dealing damage, which in this game means the hero targeted loses a card. Then the heroes take turns playing cards and using the icons on both their card and the previous card in the lineup. These can include things like movement, punches, which work for both henchmen or thugs, heroic actions used to complete threats or save civilians, and wild cards. The hero's job is to complete at least 2 of the 3 main missions, and then defeat the villain before they finish their character-specific evil plot, and to do it before any of the decks run out of cards. There's a lot of variability here, especially in how different villains work, but that is the basic game in a nutshell.
CMON are known for their minis, and these are terrific. There is a kind of chibi style to it, with big heads and chubby cheeks, but everyone looks like they're meant to, just a bit cuter. When it comes to the cards and the bits, the quality is all maybe a smidge thin, but decent, but the design choices are all really smart. The individual decks all have highly differentiated artwork that will make it easy to tell who is who, even if you don't know your Auroras from your McCoys. The icons are all huge, making it easy to see what's going on, even from across the table, and all of the wording is incredibly clear, which is important for a game that is both this simple and filled with this much variability. The design team has done a heck of a job creating a simple baseline that can be easily adapted. We do want to talk a bit more about those characters and the sets, but I'll leave that to Sean because he loves the X-Men.
I love the X-Men. When I heard there was an X-Men version of Marvel United, I was over the moon, and when I saw all of the cast, I happily paid way too much for way too many boxes. If you got the Kickstarter stuff, you will have more villains and mutants than you will ever get through, including my personal favorite, Multiple Man, who by the way is amazing in this game. And if you missed it, we would still recommend tracking down at least a few of those sets, especially the blue and gold teams and the Apocalypse set. The bummer here is that so many of these are in the Kickstarter only box, which kinda means you either have already way too much or you're only going to be able to find a little bit too little. But even if you're just looking at the base set, there is a decent amount of variation in the box. The base game has 6 X-Men and 4 villains, and 2 of those villains are able to switch to the good guy side if you want. And within that, there are a lot of levers you can pull. Each villain is a totally different challenge, and each hero has different strengths and special cards, including new starter cards for some of them, that provide lasting powers. So each game will play out quite a bit differently even within the simple system. It is also harder than you might expect. We've had about a 50% win rate in our first few games, and there are a few new modes as well that add a little bit more variation, including allow one player to play as the villain. We logged 30-some plays of the original Avengers version, and I think we're going to eclipse that pretty quickly with this X-Men one.
There are some other modes that I'll mention in a minute, but the base game is meant to work at 2 to 4 players, and it works well across all accounts. The turns are ultra quick, so the game time will barely change at different player levels. Though we have found that the challenge tends to ramp up a bit with more, as your team has more targets and can be stuck in one place for longer, so you will need to coordinate a bit better. But all counts work and all are fun. The 5-player game is only possible if one person plays the baddie, and that is a bit more of a mixed bag. It can be fun, but it does feel a little bit like you're more facilitating the game for everyone else, as your options are fairly limited. There is also a solo mode in which you are meant to be Professor X, coordinating a team of 3 heroes by shuffling 3 decks together and playing everyone at once. And this actually works really well. We aren't usually solo gamers, but we were surprised by how fun this is. And because you lose after 1 KO, it is a legitimate challenge.
We are a little bit biased here, as Jess loves quick cooperative games, and I am a bit of an X-Men super fan, but we really like this game. There's been a lot of care made to have the villains reflect their comic book counterparts with different kinds of challenges and levels of toughness, and the same goes for the heroes, which feel much more varied than the original Avengers version of the game. There are plenty of little tips to the comics, but if you have no idea who this tiny dragon is or how all of these folks are related, it won't really matter because the game's inherently fun and cleverly streamlined. For those that want a serious co-op challenge, this is going to be a little bit simple, as the choices each turn aren't terribly brain-burning and the mechanics are certainly no Spirit Island. But if you want a light co-op with some nice variation that plays quickly and looks good, this is a solid choice, especially if there is an X-Men fan in the house. Just be warned that a lot of the bits were Kickstarter only, so you may need to take out a small loan if you decide to track it all down later. And that is it. Do you love the X-Men? Which other X-themed games would you recommend? I am really asking here. And also, please do like and subscribe, and hopefully we will see you all next time for another game.